The spinning wheel stopped on Birds 365 with McMullen and McDonald hanging with you. We're lucky enough to get Mike Sielski, lead columnist on the sports side for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and a little look behind the curtain. I reached out to Mike over the weekend, said, want to get you on Birds 365 this week, draft week, any chance on Monday? He said, can't do Monday. I got work responsibilities, but I could do Tuesday, so I locked them in. Work responsibilities in Pittsburgh. What the hell were you doing in Pittsburgh, Sielski?
I was, first of all, it's great to be with you guys. John, I saw you at the presser yesterday. You did not say hello.
I did not? What? Whoa.
I don't know what I did. I don't know if I ticked you off somehow.
Hey, he didn't spill anything on you. Be thankful.
This is true. This is true.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, Jody, I was actually out in Pittsburgh to do research for my next book, which is on basically loosely the history of the slam dunk. And I was doing some research on Connie Hawkins, who was part of the 1967-68 Pittsburgh Pipers, who were the first team to win an ABA championship. And so I was out there to speak to his grandson and go to the Western Pennsylvania Sports Museum and do a bit of research for this book that's coming hopefully next year.
Now, I'm a big fan.
John, let me hop in just 1 second. I got a question off that. How much research have you done on Darnell Hillman?
I have interviewed Darnell Hillman.
Really?
Yes. I tracked him down and interviewed him. He's going to be a chapter in the book because, as your listeners and watchers may or may not know, he was, I think, the first slam dunk contest champion, really in basketball history. He won one in the ABA and had a fascinating life. Still around, lives in Indianapolis, still connected to the Pacers, which is the team that he's best known for. So I've already done the interview with Darnell. Yes.
Nice.
Are the Pittsburgh Pisces going to be in the book, Mike?
From the fish that saved Pittsburgh?
Yes.
There might be a glancing reference to them, John. And I haven't tracked down or gotten in touch with Jerome Lane yet. But there's going to be some major, Pittsburgh threads in this book. We don't think of Pittsburgh as a basketball town, but we probably should.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear you're giving.
The book, by the way, could be about Julius Erving. So
I got Doc. Doc had some interesting things to say. There's going to be a really in-depth chapter on him. I'm almost finished writing the first chapter, which is all about John Morant, which, needless to say, has been interesting over the last month or two. I'm really enjoying it, and hopefully my deadline is November.
Do you already have an addendum plan for Mac McClung? Mike.
Oh, already. Yeah. Well, I wrote a column about him after he won the dunk contest. So I think I just might take that column from the Inquirer and just plop it right in the center of the book.
Very good. Glad to hear Darnell Hillman's in there because he's the first guy I think of way back when dunking became all the rage in the NBA. All right, we got John. I'm glad you gave us the background. Now we got something to look forward to the next Sielski book. But we're also looking forward to what Sielski's got to say about the upcoming NFL draft, which is Thursday night. And Howie Roseman right now has the 10th pick in the draft. Percentage chance Howie Roseman takes somebody at 10.
Good one, Jody. I'd say about 35 to 40%. That would be my guess.
And by the way, it should be 90. With most teams, it's 90. You got the 10th pick. You pick at number 10. Howie Roseman, you take him down to 35.
Yeah, I do. I think they love to collect picks. It gives them versatility. It gives them flexibility. It allows them to strike when the iron for A.J. Brown, for instance, gets hot. So I would bet that he's going to trade down. So, I mean, is it possible they'll pick at 10? Of course. But the likelihood is, based on history, that they'll trade down.
Mike, well, first of all, I have to apologize. I think I was distracted by all the shiny baubles. It was such a, everybody is in their prom wear. The Eagles had their helmets up. It was all, Jalen had the Gucci on. I believe you had the Gucci on. It
was bauble heavy yesterday at the NovaCare complex, John.
Yes. So I was a little bit distracted. So I apologize for that. But
that's okay.
One of the things, before I get to the draft, I want to get your thoughts on that. And typical, everybody, and should be congratulatory, but I'm kind of struck by the Eagles really don't seem concerned about potentially handing $250 million to a 24-year-old. And I'm on board with him. I'm not concerned either. Have you ever seen anything like it from a perspective of such a grounded superstar? And you wrote a lot about Kobe Bryant and your tremendous book there. We've all seen superstars. You don't see guys like Jalen Hurts that often.
Not based on the available evidence, you don't. I wrote about this in a column for today, guys, about, kind of contrasting Hurts with the last two guys who you could really call franchise quarterbacks, who the Eagles gave similar sorts of contract extensions to, Donovan McNabb and Carson Wentz. Now, look, McNabb is probably the greatest quarterback in franchise history. Even if you don't believe that, you can acknowledge you can make a really strong argument for it. But Donovan also had this kind of goofy side to him, where he's playing air guitar before the playoff game against the Cowboys, and he's making jokes that fall flat during his press conferences. And as he went along in his career, his play got looser because he was putting on a little bit of weight and he wasn't moving as much, and the injuries had started to take their toll. We don't need to rehash what happened with Wentz. Everybody knows what happened in the aftermath of him signing the 4-year, $128 million extension. Hurts seems to have a discipline about him and a seriousness about him that those two guys really did not have. And I think that gets to what you're talking about here, John, that, yeah, the Eagles are always going to be confident, and Jeffrey Lurie is always going to project this sense of confidence anytime he's making such a huge investment in a franchise quarterback. This is what he believes in. This is what he does. He wants a franchise QB because he thinks, A, that's the quickest and easiest way to win Super Bowls, and he's not entirely wrong about that. And B, it sells merchandise. It makes the Eagles part of the water cooler conversation. There's a reason that Robert Kraft and the Patriots are his model franchise, and it goes beyond the fact that he's a native New Englander. It's because they walked into Tom Brady and went from being irrelevant to being America's real team for 20 years. And Lurie's kind of always been chasing that. And I think with respect to Hurts, he might actually possibly kind of have found it. I mean, you watch that kid up there yesterday, and it's all business. It's all seriousness. And as I said, I think there's a sincerity and a seriousness to him that people in Philadelphia eat up and love. And press conferences are always a combination of reality and performance art, but it seems like the proportion with Hurts trends more toward the reality than it does the performance art.
All right, Mike, two-part question for you. The first one is kind of tongue-in-cheek. An overused sports axiom, passing the baton. Did Howie Roseman grab the baton from Donovan McNabb for the fall flat on your face attempt at humor?
That's a very good question. Howie tries and tries and tries, but he's never going to be Chris Rock or Sebastian Maniscalco or anything like that.
I give him credit though, Mike. He is always workshopping stuff. God
bless. Yeah, he is. I don't know. Maybe it works in the Borscht Belt, but it doesn't work amongst the media who cover the Eagles.
Take that up to the Catskills, Howie. More importantly, Howie Roseman, running back status, value placed on it. Bijan Robinson at number 10. All right, never mind 10. Trade down to 50. All right, never mind 15. Trade down to 20. Still on the board. Do you think there's any chance that during this offseason the Eagles will add to what they think is a value for a running back? There are two ways that you can parse it. John does one way. I'm trying to look at the other. I kind of agree with John, but not as harsh as he does. You gave Jalen Hurts $255 million. You expect him to deliver big production for $255 million. So why would you want to get someone that's going to have him produce less? You're going to hand the ball off to him, make him do the work. Or you could argue, yeah, we're protecting our investment, because if we put Jalen out there and he's going to carry the ball as much as he used to, if he's on the injured list, he can't play for a month. That doesn't help him at all. Does the needle move at all for the Eagles this offseason? Does the contract that Jalen Hurts signed either have them put a little more emphasis on running back or maybe even a little less, even though I don't know how it could possibly be less?
I don't think it moves the needle very much at all, Jody. When it comes to running back, I think it accents, if anything, the need for them to build depth and collect talent along the offensive line. That's what they believe in. And, I've been hearing these arguments all week. Look, as you guys know, I'm on the radio on Saturdays, and my partner Glenn Macnow and I, and Jody's partner Glenn, we've spent a lot of time batting around this question about should the Eagles draft Bijan Robinson if they have the opportunity to do so. And I look at it the opposite way. If anything, signing Hurts to this money in the Eagles' mind says, okay, we've got to make sure there's no fall off in the offensive line, because if there is, that puts our investment at risk. And with respect to the running back position, man, I just don't see them using a first round pick. Maybe if they trade back into the mid-late 20s or 30 or 31. I mean, they already have 30, obviously. Maybe they use their 30th pick on a running back on Robinson if he's there. But it would just really surprise me. And the other thing, too, is I hear this argument a lot, like, you don't take teams that have taken a running back high shouldn't have done it because they were bad teams, and a running back isn't going to make a bad team better. Well, I look at it a different way. I look at it as that part of the reason those teams are really bad is that they're taking running backs in the top 10. If you're the Giants, part of the reason you're a bad team is that you took Saquon Barkley with the number 2 overall pick instead of taking a player who could have been a foundational piece for you along the offensive line or the defensive line or a quarterback or something along those lines. Now you have a ticked off Saquon Barkley. Now you're overpaying Daniel Jones, and you're really not in the Eagles class, I don't think. So I would just be really surprised if they took a running back in the first round.
Well, to kind of further that, Mike, you mentioned, press conferences are part reality, part performance art, which I agree with you. So when Nick Sirianni says, I don't want to take away Jalen Hurts' superpower, which is sort of like the zone read, RPO, pull the football, scare the defense, spacing, all that stuff. And then he says, last week he said, we're not paying him more to do less. Is he lying to us? Because I don't think he's lying to us.
I don't think he is either. And this to me gets back to what we were just talking about Hurts as a player and a person and the discipline that he shows. Bring it back to Wentz, for instance. I always got the sense, and I'm not the only one, I'm sure, who thought that Carson Wentz would rather make a spectacular but unsuccessful play than make the safe, smart, successful play. I get the sense,
football.
Right. He wanted to be the hero.
Yeah.
And I think that Jalen Hurts is not like that. I think Jalen Hurts can be the hero when he needs to be. I think he's smarter and more disciplined in the way that he plays. And so if there's a way for Sirianni to kind of strike that balance between keeping the threat of Hurts on the move open to the Eagles offense, and at the same time relying on Hurts and setting up some offense, working with Brian Johnson to set up the offense in a way that keeps Hurts protected, they can continue to kind of maximize this. It's going to be a hard dance for them to dance, obviously, because he is going to be exposing himself to injury every time he runs the ball. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Well, now, Mike, he heals faster than you specifically. You're the one.
I know.
But no, I bring that up for the reason, that was silly. So the one part that Jody brought up that is legitimate, health. Yeah. Can you legislate health in this league? Can you say, all right, we got to take this RPO stuff off the board. We got to take this zone read stuff off the board and have Jalen Hurts just hand the ball off to Bijan Robinson or insert name? Or do you just sort of manipulate that? Hey, we have a lead, hand it off. How do you go about that tightrope?
Yeah, I think some of this, John, depends on how the league changes and trends over time, and the Eagles and Hurts' ability to adjust to whatever those trends are going to be. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Okay, so last year, teams were more successful running the ball on a per carry basis than they had been in something like 20 or 25 years around the league. Okay, yep. And the reason for that, I think, is because for years and years, all we've heard is that you got to throw the ball to score points. You got to throw the ball to score points. And what do teams do when you hear that? They build their defenses to stop the pass. one or two linebackers on the field.
Where did they do that? Maybe like Philadelphia?
Maybe.
They play defense. Don't give up those chunk plays.
Right.
Yeah, we kind of know about that here in Philadelphia.
Right, exactly. And then what ends up happening is offenses adjust. And so you get teams like the Eagles, and to a lesser degree, even an also-ran team like the Atlanta Falcons, who, had Marcus Mariota and just terrible quarterback play last year, were able to eke out 6 or 7 wins because they could run the ball so well. And so maybe that's shifting, and the Eagles are going to have to shift with that, and Hurts is going to have to shift with that. One of the things that the Eagles are banking on, obviously, in signing Hurts to this kind of deal, is that he's going to continue to grow and improve. And part of that improvement has to come in just being a straight up drop back passer. And so we'll see if that can happen. I think, again, that gets back to something Jeffrey Lurie said yesterday, which is the one thing that the Eagles were banking on with Hurts was no matter how good he might turn out to be, he will be as good as he can possibly be because he will work that hard and he has that kind of character. He will maximize his ability. So we will see if maximizing his ability means that if they have to change the offense a little bit and get out of those RPOs, he's able to do it.
All right, assuming you are right, and the Eagles' number one priority is protect Hurts, upgrading the offensive line, which, oh, by the way, I think you very well could be right. Best 2 offensive linemen for me in this draft are Peter Skoronski and Paris Johnson. I'm flying in the face of an authority here because I know that Ray Dinger's on record. I had him on with me and Glenn the weekend before. You had him on this past weekend with you and Glenn, and he likes Skoronski more than he likes Paris Johnson. You're just going to sign on with Ray and go, yeah, give me the best offensive line. If Ray says this is the best offensive lineman, I'm going to say this is the best offensive lineman. I hate to disagree with Ray Dinger, but I like Paris Johnson better. If you're right, they're going O-line at 10. Who they taking?
It's a great question, Jody, and I have no idea. Like, I really don't. I hate saying this to you guys because, I'm going to be at the draft at the NovaCare complex on Thursday, but I've covered enough of these to know that nobody knows anything. Okay. Nobody knows anything. And I'm sorry, they just don't. I would draft Peter Skoronski.
Educated guesses, Mike. You got to give him at least that.
I would draft Peter Skoronski because Pete Skoronski sounds like the name of an offensive lineman. Okay. And
you say a guy like named Paris can't be a good offensive lineman. Is that what you're saying, Sielski?
I'm saying the Eagles would be fortunate if they have the opportunity to draft Pete Skoronski because the team drafting ahead of them is the Chicago Bears. And if the Bears don't draft an offensive lineman named Pete Skoronski from Northwestern, then they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Well, they make bad decisions all the time.
That's true.
You keep burying the Bears. Yeah. Johnny, you're going to eat some crow when the Bears make the playoffs this year, buddy.
I think the new regime, well, the old regime was terrible. Mm-hmm. When you talk about Chicago Bears football, Ryan Pace, and they went from Ryan Pace to Ryan Poles. And then the head coach was Matt Nagy to Matt Eberflus. I think they just didn't want to change the signs on the offices, but
on the parking spots.
Yeah, it's been a bad run for the Bears. Hopefully they can turn it around, but I think they've done Justin Fields a disservice. But to bring it back to the Eagles, at number 10 overall, Mike, I agree with you. It's probably going to be defensive line or offensive line, and I include edge rusher in that perspective. But I want to talk about the guys coaching these guys because there was such continuity, and that was, I think, a big part of the Eagles' run last year. Very rare. And now we have new coordinators. Defensive side was gutted, so I think you see that as a whole. Nick Sirianni made kind of a bold move, not necessarily overlooking, but bypassing Denard Wilson for Sean Desai. And then Brian Johnson, we all know his history with Jalen Hurts. But boy, I thought Shane Steichen was a great play caller. I thought he had a great feel for it. Are we just overlooking this sort of pretty seismic changes on the coaching staff?
Yeah, I think we are to a degree, John, especially the Steichen one, because I think you're right. I thought he was terrific last year, really smart guy. defensively, I think there is something to be said for continuity, as you put it. I was more in the middle on Jonathan Gannon's strategy than a lot of people were. But that defense had an awful lot of talent on it too. And a good bit of that talent comes back. It's all a year older, and in some cases that's okay. And in some cases it, is a bit of a concern when you're talking about guys like Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox and how much you're going to rely on them and all of that. But it is something that's worth looking at, because Brian Johnson has never been an offensive coordinator before. And Sean Desai is new at this. And Nick Sirianni wants to be, a CEO kind of coach. He doesn't want to have to step in and call plays on offense or start dictating terms on defense. He likes to have his guys have autonomy. So we'll see how this goes. And look, there's personnel questions too. Are they going to, is Jordan Davis going to be able to stay on the field more often? Is he going to be a difference maker? Is what we saw from him last year and kind of the mediocrity, I guess you'd say, from him just solely injury based? Or is there an issue? Is there going to be an issue there? Is Nakobe Dean going to get on the field? Those sorts of things. So I think it's worth looking at and saying, boy, it's going to be tough for those units to be as good as they were last season.
All right, Mike, I want to do a little role playing with you, if that's okay. I'm going to make you.
You're kinky, Jody. I like it.
I'm going to make you Howie Roseman, okay? And I'm
not telling any jokes.
Yeah,
John
bad joke.
McMullen
Right off the bat.
Asking
Bad
you
joke.
questions. Yeah, feel free to skip the jokes, Howie.
Okay.
If the Chicago Bears are on the clock at number 9 and Jalen Carter has fallen to 9, if we can all agree that he's a top 2-3 talent, you've had your boy Dom do all the research, you think that was isolated incidents, you think he'll be fine in your clubhouse under your coaching staff, you love the value of Jalen Carter at number 9, and the Chicago Bears call you and go, listen, John's favorite GM, Mr. Pulse. Listen, Howie, we're going to either take Jalen Carter, or we're going to trade him to team Y that's going to move up and take him at number 9. We just wanted to give you a shot at taking the kid if you want. If not, we're going to trade the pick to somebody else, and they're going to take Jalen Carter. All we're asking is your number 1 draft pick next year, which, oh, by the way, is basically a second-round draft pick, because the Eagles are going to be picking 30, 31, 32. So if we settled for a second, that's almost a third-round draft pick. So, no, we're not giving you the player for a third-round pick. Give us your 1 next year. You can move up. We'll just drop down to 1 spot. Are you interested, Howie Roseman?
Oh, yeah. If Big Dom has done the due diligence on Jalen Carter, because the Eagles, to their credit, generally get this stuff right. They have a pretty good track when it comes to evaluating character and a guy's background and things like that. Compared to other teams, they don't miss on this as often. So yeah, if I'm persuaded that Jalen Carter isn't going to be a problem, that he's on the straight and narrow, I definitely think about taking that call from the Bears and making that move.
All right. Give up
at Mike Sielski. Make sure you follow Mike on Twitter, read'eminquirer.com. Tremendous column on Jalen Hurts and the new deal. Seems too good to be true. I don't know if that's the case. Read Mike there. Saturdays on WIP with Glenn Mack now. Jody's there Sundays with Glenn. All over the place. I would say it's close enough to Father's Day. So we'll say start thinking about Father's Day, riseofkobebook.com, at least until the Slam Dunk book comes out. So I want to end it there with you, Mike. I want to take Doc off the table, Michael Jordan. I'm going to take Connie Hawkins off the table. So the legendary dunkers we all know. Who's your favorite dunker that maybe we don't know?
Ooh, that's a really good one. Let me think about that, John. I'm a Dominique fan.
Yeah, well, he's really,
Yeah, I mean, I that's when I came up. One of the things that's
Power.
And one of the things that's been interesting to me in doing the research for this book is how basketball's perspective on the dunk has changed over time. It was the thing in the 80s and 90s to do. Every kid on every playground wanted to try to dunk. And now it's the opposite. Not the opposite, I should say, but the three-point shot is what is cool. Steph Curry has made the three-pointer cool. And there's all sorts of implications for that for basketball and dunking itself. I would argue that John Morant is really the only guy in the NBA now who generates genuine, sustained excitement when he dunks the ball, because there's this perception that we've seen everything that these guys can do in the air, and there's more to be done, shooting from distance. So it's been interesting.
You've seen 1-3, you've seen them all. Come on.
Yeah.
Dunking is always going to be better.
I always say, look, my wheelhouse is Mo Cheeks leading the break, Bobby Jones and Julius Erving on the wings. That is the most exciting basketball to me. Sort of stops it. I don't want to see guys veering to the 3-point line. I want to see Doc finishing. That's what I want to see.
And that's the thing too, guys. It's changed the nature of the sport. Like we've lost some of the artistry and the spontaneity in basketball. I'm not just saying this because I wrote a book about the guy. Like, I loved the way Kobe Bryant played. I love the way Allen Iverson played, because there is something to be said for an incredibly gifted player hitting an incredibly difficult shot, even if it's a low efficiency shot. I want to see Kobe hit a 19-foot turnaround that only he can take, and that every coach and general manager in the league now would say, don't take that shot, take the three or dunk it. So all of that's going to be gotten into in the book.
All right. And again, there's only one guy whose name was Dr. Dunk, and that's Darnell Hillman.
Darnell Hillman, man.
It was on the top of my list. And one guy I know you won't be able to interview, and we're off on a dunking tangent again.
Wow. It's a good tangent to me.
Earl Manigault.
I'm going to have a chapter on Earl. I have talked to Rick Tellender, who wrote, Heaven is a Playground. I talked to Peter Vesey, who knew Earl the GOAT. I talked to the guy who co-wrote Earl's autobiography. I've done a ton of research on Earl the GOAT. He's going to be a chapter in the book, Jody.
By the way, I should have mentioned, speaking of Dr. Dunk, Dr. Duncan Steen, Daryl Dawkins, I should have mentioned him. Bill Robinson crying.
Yeah, there you go.
A dog.
There's so many of them, guys. There's going to be some that are not going to be able. I can't spend that much time on in the book, but there's going to be a chapter on the 1983 Final Four and Lorenzo Charles and Phi Slamma Jamma. It's been a lot of fun to research and write this.
Right, and that's why Chocolate Thunder had to go Dr. Duncan Steen, because Dr. Dunk was already taken by Darnell Hillman. Mike, looking forward to the book. Looking forward to reading your Eagle stuff on the draft all week. And I'm looking forward. Well, I feel badly for you, because not this Saturday, but next Saturday, you got to work with me on WIP, because Mac now's taking a week off. So,
and he's got to see me on Thursday. That's a bad week.
Just acknowledge my presence this time, John. Just give me throw, as Dr. Evil would say, throw me a freaking bone here.
We will do just that. Always a pleasure, Mike. Thanks, bud.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks,
Sielski,
Mike.
lead sports columnist for the Inquirer here.
Tough week for Mike. Man, he's got both of us. Damn.
I will be talking dunking with Sielski next Saturday. We're supposed to stick to the football here on this show, but next Saturday when I got him on WIP with me, we'll be talking about dunking. I love it. All right, John and I are going to come back. We'll stick with the football. Draft is just 2 days away. Keep it here, right here on Birds 365.